On December 20, 2025, on the day of the new moon, on the eve of the longest night of the year, the black moon, Lilith, the projection of the demon tempter in our horoscope, changes signs, and for the next 9 months, it will spend time in the space of the sign Sagittarius, which will undoubtedly have an impact on each of the zodiac signs. And it is precisely about this that we will talk in detail today. The black moon is like the dark side of the moon, which is not illuminated by the sun, and in its darkness, fears, mirages, sins, and delusions are born. The black moon is not evil in its pure form. It is an empty focus that our imagination can fill with anything. Nevertheless, it is precisely the transit of the black moon through some sphere of our life, through some house of our horoscope, that shows us what exactly we need to pay attention to, what exactly here we need to show vigilance in order not to give the reins of government to the black moon. The transit of the black moon shows in which sphere of our earthly existence we need to be attentive in order to consciously fill this dark corner of our existence, consciously fill it with light. In what spheres of life can we all, regardless of our exact zodiac sign, expect a distortion of reality in the period from December 20, 2025 to September 14, 2026? The sign of Sagittarius, in which the black moon will be for these 9 months, symbolizes boundaries. Boundaries as rules of crossing, boundaries as documents that are necessary for crossing borders, for entering some country and staying there. It symbolizes the norms for transporting certain goods, and in general everything that concerns the rules and norms of crossing borders and staying in another country. And here much can change, sometimes in an unexpectedly illogical way. For example, when we are already standing at the border and going through control, it turns out during the inspection of our luggage that we have a product that is not allowed to be brought here. And this can be something unexpected, like, for example, that you cannot bring shampoo in a plastic bottle here. Or standing at the border, it suddenly turns out that from today a visa is needed to enter this country or electronic registration 24 hours before entry. We are already at the border. Therefore, when planning trips during this period, you need to find out everything thoroughly. Because even if you visited this country 6 months ago or a year ago, and it seems to you that you know everything about the rules for entering this country, everything could have changed. Moreover, again, in some unexpectedly illogical way. The sign of Sagittarius in the universal horoscope is the 9th astro field. And the 9th astro field is the 12th house from the 10th. That is, it is the house that shows the completion of some processes that are necessary for us to be able to move into the 10th astro field, which is the sector of our status, career, reputation, and our achievements. That is, the 9th house, the house of Sagittarius, is, in essence, in our career, such a preliminary stage when we choose our profession, when we undergo training, when we begin to gain experience in order to enter this 10th astro field and occupy a significant position in our career, on our career ladder. And throughout this transit, the black moon will provoke our doubts about the profession we have chosen, will give a desire, an interest to change the direction of activity, while skipping this preliminary stage when we undergo the appropriate training course and start our career from scratch. That is, it will seem to us that this is completely normal. From one high position that we hold, where we have education, where we have experience, we can jump. It will seem to us that we can jump to an equally significant position, only in a different industry, in a different sphere, that is, skipping the stage of obtaining education and starting a career from scratch. The house of Sagittarius is the house of optimism, and here the black moon will form emotional swings, will give extremes when our mood will fluctuate from extremely optimistic to absolutely pessimistic. And here it is important to rely on, so to speak, optimistic realism. Then we will be able to avoid these swings from delight to despondency. The house of Sagittarius is also the sector of bureaucratic formalities. Therefore, at this time, you need to monitor some innovations in this direction so that it does not turn out that you do not have some necessary document or that you needed to submit some specific tax return, and you did not know about it, and accordingly, did not do it. That is, here you need to monitor innovations in the bureaucratic sector. The symbol of this sign, the sign of Sagittarius, is the centaur, who directs his arrow into the sky. A centaur who knows no miss and whose arrow always hits the target. And the black moon distorts this principle of hitting the target. That is, even when it seems to us that success is already in our hands, that only some insignificant formality remains, at that moment much can change. And vice versa, when it seems to us that we are going in a completely wrong direction, that we need to fundamentally change the route, it is at this moment that we find ourselves at our goal. That is, here the black moon can confuse our goals and our paths to them. The civilizational task of the sign Sagittarius is the task of giving the world such an idea that will make the world better. But here, with the black moon during this period, giving the world such an idea can be difficult, although there will be a great many ideas, but each of them will have serious pitfalls. During this period, it is important to carefully observe your own optimism, since there may be a situation here when we, with an extremely enthusiastic level of optimism, will take on some ideas, grab onto them, such ideas that actually have little connection with reality. And the extreme degree of influence of the black moon in the sign of Sagittarius is fanaticism. The sign of Sagittarius, as the abode of the noble Jupiter, symbolizes the ideas and values by which society lives. And the black moon here, in this sector, contributes to informational influence on society in the plane of division and stratification, of course, with the aim of managing and controlling. Therefore, here, as in any other matters, you need to think with your own head. And as we have already said, the sign of Sagittarius symbolizes higher education, specialized education. And since this sign is ruled by the planet Jupiter, which symbolizes elites, the managerial level, then this time of the black moon's transit is a time when people who have neither specialized education nor experience in this field can be appointed to significant positions. For example, at the simplest level. Here, the head of a department or some organization can be appointed a person who does not understand at all what is happening here, who, perhaps, held a similar position in some other industry. But about this industry and its nuances, he has no idea. Also, the sign of Sagittarius symbolizes tolerance and tolerance. Tolerance as respect for the otherness of other people, for the fact that they have different views, different from our own, for the fact that they have a different level of education or a different religion. That is, the sign of Sagittarius symbolizes such a multicultural society where there is tolerance for each other. But in fact, the black moon in this sector just distorts this principle of tolerance. It strengthens the division into monocultural cells, and within the framework of a small society, for example, a city or a country. Often during periods of such a black moon transit, various kinds of brotherhoods, sisterhoods, and communities of people who are united on the basis of a common idea, ideology, or religion are formed. Also, the sign of Sagittarius symbolizes a guru, symbolizes a specialist in some field. And during this period, we may have either excessive trust in people who call themselves gurus or, conversely, complete distrust of people who are specialists in some field. Therefore, when we turn to some specialists, it can be anyone, both a doctor and a lawyer, a notary, that is, a specialist in some field, a narrow specialist. When we turn to such people, here we may have a tendency to either completely trust the opinion of such a person or advice, or absolutely not trust. Therefore, again, a golden mean is needed here. The last time the black moon was in the space of the sign Sagittarius was in the period from February 14 to November 9, 2017. Remember how its influence manifested in your life and in your affairs then. And now let's talk separately about each of the zodiac signs. In what sphere of life can you expect the manifestation of the cunning black moon? Aries, for you, the transit of the black moon will pass through the sphere of the 9th astrofield. And on the plus side, it will give you the opportunity. The black moon will give you the opportunity to believe in your dream, to see that you actually can live differently, can lead a different lifestyle, that in this world you are actually allowed much more than you think. That is, the black moon will here remove some barriers that you have set for yourself, will change your ideas about the world and about your capabilities in this world. On the minus side, during this transit of the black moon, there may be some mishaps in legal and bureaucratic matters. Therefore, here you need to pay attention to what new rules exist, what innovations, so that at some point you do not find out that it turns out you do not have the necessary document or did not submit some special declaration regarding your income. That is, that there are some new legal, bureaucratic norms that you did not know about. Also, the time of this transit will have an impact on your relationships with friends and relatives of your partner in your personal life. And also, the 9th house symbolizes everything foreign. Therefore, in the process of communicating with people who are foreigners, visitors, there may be some misunderstandings and miscommunications. Also, the black moon in the 9th house gives a desire to argue with people whose opinions are different from our own. And this, of course, is not bad within reasonable limits, precisely in the process of conversation, discussion, when everyone explains their position, their point of view. It is then that we can come to some truth. But during the influence of the black moon, this can be difficult, and we tend to argue for the sake of argument itself. Also, since the 9th house symbolizes everything foreign, at this time you may have such a thought that if you move to some other place, to another country or to another city, or simply to another home, another district, that is, if you move somewhere, then you will fundamentally change your life, and all the bad things will remain in the place where you were. This, of course, is an illusion, a mirage, because wherever we move, we take ourselves with us. Therefore, of course, objectively, moving significantly affects our life. Even when we simply move to another apartment, even in the same city or district where we live, it changes our life, because it will be a different apartment number, house number. There will be a different energetic influence on us, a different environment. Our desk or the bed where we rest will face a different direction. This, of course, will affect us, but still, in order to radically change something in our life, we need to change something in our thinking and in our attitude towards life, towards the world, and towards ourselves. Also, during this period, there may be some questions or mishaps related to your education. Someone may decide that I no longer want to study in this field. I will go to another institute, another educational institution. I will change my profession. Yes, this is possible, but here again you need to understand why you are doing this. Does this new profession, new direction really correspond to your needs and your abilities, or is it simply a fashionable profession today? Taurus, in your horoscope, the transit of the black moon will fall on the space of the 8th astro field. This is the sector of common and joint resources, finances, common and joint income, property. This is the sector that shows our financial settlements with other people, organizations, and the state. And here there may be certain nuances. For some, this may play out as a thought, a fear that someone will use your resources, that you need to protect your resources more carefully, even within the common joint budget in the family. This is a time when there may be some misunderstandings when you conclude long-term financial or property contracts and agreements. For example, when you order furniture that needs to be made specifically for you, according to your dimensions, according to your order, then here not everything may go as planned. That is, there may be delays. You could have expected to receive items of one quality. They will be different. That is, attentiveness is needed here. When you conclude any oral or written agreements related to money and property, you need to clearly and carefully stipulate everything, both the cost, which should not change during the fulfillment of this agreement, and the deadlines and other conditions. And also, during this period, fears and concerns may arise here related to the possibility or impossibility of fulfilling your financial obligations. That is, you may feel that loan or mortgage or other financial obligations, for example, to your family, to your children, that suddenly you will not be able to fulfill them. What then will happen? That is, there may be such thoughts and fears. This needs to be controlled and stopped. Also, the 8th house is the house of passions. Passions that relate both to the world of matter and to the feelings of love. And during this transit, there can be a very strong fixation on something that causes a very strong emotional response in you. For some, this is again the sphere of money and property, some property issue. For some, this is the sphere of feelings, emotions, and relationships. Fixation is precisely the hook on which the black moon often catches us. Therefore, if you feel that most of your thoughts throughout the day revolve around one specific topic, try to distract yourself. And also, during such a transit, it is important not to take on extra financial obligations, not to take on some burden that will then be quite difficult to bear. You may regret that you took on such an obligation. If you work with large sums of money, if you manage resources, for example, work as a chief accountant or economist, a manager managing other people's resources or capital, then attentiveness is needed here, because here there may be a possibility of some error or misunderstanding, as well as issues that are related, for example, to taxes or other financial obligations to the state. Attentiveness is needed here. Again, you need to study some innovations in this sector so that it does not turn out that you have an unpaid fine that now prevents you from performing some specific bureaucratic actions. If during this period you are planning some major deal, for example, selling real estate or acquiring or arranging a mortgage to acquire real estate, land, or a car, then attentiveness is needed. Because here it is important that if you take on a financial obligation, then you should also be the beneficiary. That is, you need to see with whom you are in partnership, with whom you are registering some financial obligation. And could it turn out that the obligation is on you, but the benefit goes to another person? Or, for example, if you jointly rent housing or an office for work together with your friends or business companions, then here again you need to carefully stipulate who performs what duties and who bears what responsibility. Also, the 8th house, in which the black moon will be located, symbolizes rebirth. This is the house of the phoenix bird, rebirth after a crisis. And the influence of the black moon here is such that it can awaken in you a desire to burn some bridges. This is not always bad. The black moon actually helps us release what has accumulated in us. Therefore, if you have really had such a thought for a long time that you need to close some door behind you, burn bridges, then of course you can do it. But if this thought is spontaneous, emotional, momentary, then of course, you should not rush. You need to carefully think everything through, how beneficial it will be for you. Gemini, in your horoscope, the black moon will be transiting through your 7th astro field. This is the sector that symbolizes our partners in work, in personal life, and also our close friends. And here there may be a tendency not always to correctly assess the intentions and true needs, true goals of your partners. There may be misunderstandings here when, it would seem, we agreed on one thing. We worked out a plan of joint actions, but as a result, partners act completely differently because they understood the essence of your agreements differently. Therefore, here it is important to ensure that there is mutual understanding, to avoid any situations or agreements in which something is assumed, in which there is ambiguity, there is space for interpretation. You need to clearly spell out all the conditions, then you can avoid misunderstandings. Also, at this time, unusual people, maybe even toxic people, who criticize you or who, with their actions and conversations, somehow try to harm you may come across your life path, maybe even unintentionally. It's just the essence of their personality. Therefore, yes, on the one hand, people can and should be trusted, but on the other hand, this trust should not be excessive. This is a period when someone from your environment may behave differently than you expected. That is, of course, we tend to assume that people will act as we ourselves would act in a similar situation. But during this period of time, this may be completely different, and you cannot completely rely on the actions of another person here. As for personal life, here we may have some suspicions about our partner. It may seem to us that they do not give us enough attention, that their thoughts are too engrossed in work or some other projects or their friends, their interests. It may seem to us that this person is not as interested in us as they once were. The black moon here creates illusions, mirages. Therefore, it is important that everything you think about has some actual connection with reality, that it is not an invented mirage that does not actually exist. If your work, your profession involves interacting with people, with clients, then it is important to spell out all the conditions of your cooperation so that again there is no ambiguity here. Because when people turn to us to acquire some goods or information, they have their own expectations, which far from always correspond to what we can offer them in reality. Also, during this period, attentiveness is needed if you are planning to conclude any legal agreements. For example, concluding a deal, purchase and sale with a notary, or drawing up a power of attorney to perform certain actions. Here you need to carefully look at everything you sign and all the conditions of your legal agreement. Also, throughout this transit, you may from time to time encounter criticism directed at you. And this criticism, its essence, the issue that is criticized, may have little connection with reality. That is, for example, you may be criticized for something you did not do at all or for something you did not even think about. This can happen. The black moon creates such provocations. Cancer, in your horoscope, the black moon will be transiting through the 6th astrofield. This is the sector that shows our basic living conditions, shows the conditions in which we live and work, shows how our rhythm and style of life and employment are organized. And it is precisely here that there may be some mishaps. For example, you may take on too many obligations regarding some routine matters. You may think that you are responsible for everything that happens in your home, for all matters related to your relatives, for all issues that occur at your work as well. Also, this is the house that symbolizes our health and our healthy lifestyle. And here there may be extremes, either excessive fixation on your state of health on the verge of hypochondria, or here, on the contrary. You may overload yourself too much, not giving yourself rest and sufficient care for your physical condition. If the topic of treatment is relevant for you, or if during this period you will be taking some tests, undergoing examinations, then here you should not completely trust the results you receive, because during such a period of black moon transit there may be errors. That is, during this period it is better to listen to the opinions of different doctors or retake tests in different clinics in order to avoid errors, because errors can occur here. This is a time when it is important to distribute responsibilities, both at your work and at home, so as not to take on too much responsibility, too heavy a burden. Also, this is a time when at work in work matters, some mishaps may arise. For example, you may notice that behind your back, colleagues are whispering about something, that they are talking about you, that they are discussing you or trying to somehow set you up in front of management or your clients. That is, there may be similar situations here, and this needs to be controlled. You need to try not to tell about yourself, about your personal life, personal plans, not to spread about this at work. You need to maintain subordination, both in relations with your colleagues and in relations with your management. Also, there may be some unplanned inspections by the company's management or by regulatory authorities. Also, this is a period when it is important to monitor cleanliness and order in everything that surrounds you. The cleaner and more well-organized the conditions in which you live and work, the more order there is, for example, on your desk, in your documents, or on your work laptop, the less influence the black moon will have on your affairs and plans. That is, here the key to weakening the influence of the black moon lies in the plane of order and good organization. Leo, in your horoscope, the transit of the black moon will fall on the space of the 5th astrofield. This is the sector of joy, celebration, the hobbies of our children, and also our feelings and emotions. This is a generally favorable transit for you, because the black moon will give an aspect of luck in relation to your sign. This is a time when you can be passionate about many things. These can be hobbies related to work, to your profession, to some ideas regarding your work. These can be hobbies as pastimes. And also, this is a period when you can turn your hobby into your own business. This is a time when you can be fascinated by people, when some people from your environment or your new acquaintances can captivate you with their words, ideas, or their example. In which specific planes of existence can one expect the distortions brought by the black moon? The first sector is the plane of games addictions, and here control is important. If you play some games, if this is characteristic of you, then you need to control that this does not take up a lot of your free time and moreover money. The second plane is the sphere of feelings and emotions. The black moon here provokes us to fall in love, to flirt, to be carried away by some people. Therefore, here you need to carefully watch that all this is expedient. If you are looking for a relationship, then this is a wonderful transit. But it is important to observe whether the feelings you experience for a partner are simply the fruit of your internal need to love someone, or whether it is really a genuine feeling. It is also important to see that your relationships are, again, expedient. If you see that you are more fascinated by your partner than they are by you, then you should not rush too much and plunge headlong into this relationship. Also, for those who are in long-term and constant relationships, here you may provoke, even unintentionally, jealousy from your partner. That is, some words, maybe flirting, some smiles, or excessive attention on your part towards another person. This can provoke outbursts of jealousy in your partner. The third field on which the black moon can be reflected is issues related to children. And here attentiveness is needed, because the black moon creates imbalance. And we can be either excessively fixated on caring for children, when we do not allow them to make any decisions, when we constantly worry, control, call them endlessly, or, as the other extreme, when we do not notice what is happening in the thoughts and plans of our children, when we overlook something. Therefore, here, as always, as in everything else, common sense and a golden mean are important. During this transit, you may have a tendency to overestimate the significance of your feelings, emotions, and desires. That is, there may be an excessive fixation on something when we constantly think about one thing, and it seems to us that we passionately desire it. Here, a proportionality between your desires and the practical benefit of their realization is needed. You need to remember that I want is not always the same as I need this. And when I want coincides with I need this, then it should become a goal. But if it is simply an impulsive desire that leads to no benefit, no result, which may even be harmful, then you need to try to limit yourself and not overestimate the significance of your own desires. Virgo, in your horoscope, the black moon will be transiting through the 4th astro field. This is the sector that symbolizes our home. The place where we live symbolizes our family and intra-family relationships. It is in this sector that the black moon will create imbalance. Imbalance both on the plus side and on the minus side. For example, what could this be? When a feeling arises that the house where we live is some kind of bottomless well into which all our strength goes, that we are constantly cleaning, taking care of the house, doing some shopping for the home, for the family, but all this is not visible. We clean today, and after an hour there is disorder again. That is, there may be such a feeling. Although, again, the black moon creates illusions, and everything that seems to us during this period may actually be completely different. Of course, the black moon in this sector will affect issues of your interaction with your relatives. These are both people you live with and distant relatives, all members of your family, regardless of whether you live together or not. And here some circumstances or plots will form that will literally hook you. That is, it may be that one of your relatives commits an act for which it will be uncomfortable or even shameful for you. This is a time when you may learn some secrets about one of your relatives. That is, here the black moon, on the one hand, will create some emotional provocations and at the same time give a feeling of distrust towards your relatives. It may seem, there may be such an impression, that they are using you, that they are using your resources, that they are burdening you with their own affairs and problems. During this period, it is very important to avoid quarrels and scandals at home, because the cleaner the emotional space in your family, the less influence the black moon will have on your affairs. This applies to the physical, domestic plane as well. The cleaner your home is, the more order there is, the less influence the black moon will have on you. Here it can also manifest its influence in such a perspective that either you constantly want to spend time at home, do not want to communicate with anyone, just want to be at home, or, on the contrary, since the black moon creates imbalance, creates extremes, it may be the opposite, that you do not want to go home, that you want to go anywhere with friends to work, but just not home, because there are again many tasks, many questions that need to be resolved. It is important to understand that the black moon creates illusions. Therefore, if suddenly you begin to suspect one of your relatives that they are plotting something behind your back, or that they actually treat you badly and only want to use your resources, then you should not psych yourself up. You need to look at the facts. It is the facts that help dispel this fog of illusions. And of course, during this period, as in fact always, but at this time especially, you should try not to bring home, into your home, that irritation or that dissatisfaction that has accumulated somewhere outside its boundaries. For example, if you feel that you are irritated by some situation at work, then try not to bring this home, not to vent your dissatisfaction, your bad mood, irritability, fatigue, not to vent it on members of your family. Also, attentiveness is needed regarding the people you invite into your home, because during this period, there may be so-called toxic guests who come to you, but actually to find some reasons to criticize and discuss you behind your back. Also, attentiveness is needed here. If during this period you are planning to move or acquire housing, or are planning to take new housing for rent, then attentiveness is needed here, because the black moon forms mirages and gives the opportunity to make a mistake. Therefore, you need to be very attentive to documents, to all aspects of this transaction. And attentiveness is also needed if you are doing renovations in your home during this period, because many things may not go as you expected. And in general, the black moon gives us such a feature that we can choose for ourselves an interior that, in fact, later, when this transit ends, we will not like at all. That is, we may suddenly decide that we need walls of purple or red, dark green, or furniture of such a bright shade. And then over time, we will realize that this is, of course, an irritating factor for us, because usually it is better when the colors in the interior correspond to some natural shades. Therefore, if you are planning to do renovations or buy furniture or make some rearrangement in your home, then try to act taking into account that the transit of the black moon will end, but the environment will remain. Therefore, it is better to choose shades and a design that are not screaming. Also, attentiveness is needed in matters related to payments for your real estate, with documents confirming your ownership rights, because there may be some errors here. For example, you may pay utility bills, but they may go to some other account. That is, you can mix something up. Attentiveness is needed in everything, regarding the place of residence, home, real estate, and also intra-family relationships. Also, if you rent out your housing, then carefully look at what kind of people you choose, because here, too, not everything may be so simple. It is better to conclude an official contract and carefully look at who these people are, whether they will be negligent with your property or delay payments. Libra, in your horoscope, the black moon will be transiting through your third astro field. This is the sector of our informational interaction, contact with the people around us and the world. Therefore, during this time, you need to carefully monitor the purity of your information space, what information you consume, and what information you transmit yourself. The black moon in this sector can create a feeling of a broken telephone. When you were told one piece of information, you understood it one way, transmitted it to other people differently, and as a result, confusion arises. Confusion is generally a companion of the black wave in the third house. And if at this time you are scheduling meetings, agreeing on a place and time for a meeting or some other important event, then it is better to double-check everything, because there may be errors, slips of the tongue, typos, and we may either forget ourselves that we agreed to meet with someone, that we scheduled a meeting, or we may tell someone about the meeting place and time but mix something up. It is important during this time to pay attention to the security of your personal information and that which is realized through the internet and information stored in paper form. That is, attentiveness is needed regarding your personal data and your documents. It happens during such a transit that we are absolutely sure that all our documents are in a certain place, but in fact, we have already taken something from there and did not put it back. Or, for example, that our small children could have found our documents and damaged something during play. Therefore, monitor the safety of your information, both digital and paper. Also, the third house is the house of written speech. It is the house of those letters or requests that we send somewhere in written form. And at this time, there is a risk of mixing something up here. For example, writing a letter but sending it to the wrong place. Or in the process of communication, correspondence with a person through some special services, we may send a message to the wrong person, so attentiveness is needed here. Also, the third house symbolizes means of communication, and at this time, careful control, self-control over how much time you spend with a phone in your hands is needed, if, of course, this is not your job. That is, you need to ensure that all your attention and a lot of your time does not go just to scrolling through a news feed. Also, at this time, you need to remember the folk wisdom that we are the masters of our unspoken words, but at the same time, we are slaves to the words we have said. Therefore, again, attentiveness is needed regarding to whom and what you say, so that the words you have spoken or the promises you have made are not used against you. Scorpio, in your horoscope, the black moon is leaving your sign where it spent 9 months. And during this time, it probably allowed you, helped you, supported you in expressing yourself as you wanted. It gave you opportunities to declare yourself louder, brighter, or to introduce some changes to your external image, to the image we show to the world. And now the black moon for 9 months moves into your second house of the horoscope. This is the sector of your finances, and here attentiveness is needed. The second house symbolizes not only our money, our resources as material resources, but also our values, what is valuable and important to us. And here, during this period, there is a possibility that you will put some of your needs or goals, or some life situation, that you will put it on a pedestal in your value system. And then, when this transit ends, you will be surprised why at this time you considered it so important to you. Therefore, be careful when getting carried away with something. Do not forget to ask yourself, is this really so significant for me? What exactly in my life is actually significant, matters, and makes me happy? And of course, the second house of our horoscope symbolizes our money, the income that comes into our hands, and also symbolizes our expense items. And here attentiveness is needed, because the black moon forms extremes. It can give periods when we save on everything, when we are excessively stingy. And this can alternate with periods when we spend money on things that we actually do not need. That is, we either save excessively or excessively squander our own money. Therefore, thoughtfulness is needed here. It is better to plan your expenses, your spending, to avoid any imbalances in this regard. And of course, at this time, you need to especially carefully protect your financial information. Also, if during this period you are concluding any deals, whether with a client or concluding a contract with an employer, then understand that the terms you agree upon must be written out very clearly. That is, for example, if you are promised payment sometime, then you need to clearly state the deadlines, because here too there can be illusions, mirages, and not everything may develop as you expected. Everything needs to be thoroughly and item by item discussed. Also, at this time, it is better to avoid any dubious deals, especially where you are promised quick and easy money. The second house also symbolizes our appetite and our nutrition. And this is also a time when there may be some imbalances here, when we can forget that it is time for us to have lunch, and then in the evening compensate for everything that we did not manage to eat during the day. Therefore, here you need to monitor your diet and meal schedule. Also, the second house symbolizes what we consider our own, what belongs to us. And the black moon here can form such circumstances or thoughts when it seems to us that someone is trying to take away from us what we consider our own. This can be both on the physical, material plane and emotional. It seems to us that someone is laying claim to what is ours. Therefore, at this time, we may set boundaries more often than usual. We can clearly state that this is mine, you don't touch this, whatever it may be. Also, the black moon in the second house gives a great many material desires. We want a lot, and that's good. When we want a lot, we also get a lot. Sagittarius, an interesting time begins for you. The transit of the black moon through your own sign, it gives us a lot. First of all, that we can decide on those actions that we could not decide on before. The black moon in this sector as if telling you, allow yourself everything. It as if tells us, become as you want, do it, take the first step. It helps us decide on something, helps us go the way of experiments. However, of course, the black moon still creates mirages. And the first house of the horoscope, through which it will be transiting for you, is the house of how we look, how we manifest ourselves to the external world. Therefore, attentiveness is needed here, because at this time we can decide on much more extravagant steps regarding our appearance, our haircut, hair color, or our style in clothing, on something much more extravagant than is typical for us. And then we can think, how could we even do such a thing? Therefore, you need to try to adhere to reasonable boundaries. Among the minuses of this transit, some mishaps may occur from time to time. As an example, when we are in the center of attention, performing somewhere, saying something when people are looking at us, and these are not only people close to us, then at that moment we can, for example, spill coffee on ourselves or not notice some mishap with our clothing. That is, similar situations can occur here. Also, at this time, we may encounter the fact that other people do not quite adequately perceive and accept us or understand us. That is, we may mean one thing, but we are understood completely differently. Or someone will claim that we said some words that we did not say and on a topic that we did not even think about. This is a time when you need to be prepared for the fact that you may not be understood quite correctly. Therefore, if we are talking about some serious things, it is better to double-check everything. Having said something, ask again what you understood. Or you may encounter that you are accused of something to which you have no relation at all. Also, at this time, you may encounter distrust towards you, that is, distrust of your word, your promise. Someone may demand some guarantees or speak with doubt about your promises. This is normal for such a transit, but that's about the minuses. There are many more pluses here. This is a time when you can create a new image of yourself, when you can become the way you always wanted to be, when you can become freer in expressing yourself, more open, and allow yourself what you have long denied yourself. Capricorn, in your horoscope, the black moon will be transiting through the 12th astro field. This is the house of the past and the house of secrets, the house of everything that is hidden. And this is a time when the black moon will be reviewing, digging into your skeletons in the closet. This is a time when secrets that you have long hidden may come to the surface. Therefore, it is better, if you keep some secret, then it is better to continue to keep it during this transit. Do not suddenly confess something to someone. And also, you should treat carefully the secrets that other people have entrusted to you. The 12th house is the house of secret relationships. And if this topic is relevant for you, these can be relationships of both a personal and business nature. If there are relationships in your life that you are hiding, then during this period, during this transit, they may find out about it. The 12th house is also the house of chronic illnesses. And the black moon can form here fear, concerns related to the probability of contracting some specific disease. You should not fixate on this. You should not be hypochondriacal. If there are any concerns, it is better to talk to a doctor about it, not to think about it constantly. Also, the 12th house is the house of the past, the house of completion. And the black moon here can form a very strong desire to quit something and start life with a clean slate, or go somewhere or fundamentally change radically, very quickly change some situation. But thoughtfulness is needed here. If this is really your plan, then it is worth implementing it in reality. But if it is a momentary desire, if it is an emotion not backed by specific possibilities, then you should not slam the door and burn bridges before you have a real plan of action. Also, the 12th house is the house of secret enemies, and the black moon forms here some hooks or concerns. Therefore, at this time, we may suspect someone from our environment that this person is actually our secret enemy. It's just that he does not declare it openly yet. But in most cases, this, of course, is not the case. It's just that we can really have increased suspiciousness and distrust here. Also, since the 12th house is the house of completion, this is a period when we draw certain conclusions. And since the black moon gives illusions and mirages, it may seem to us that our results are completely insignificant. We may underestimate them, underestimate ourselves and the successes we have achieved. Therefore, here you need to look at the facts. You should not think that we wasted time on something. Even if in some life direction we have not achieved significant success, nevertheless we have gained experience. During this transit, we tend to recall some not very pleasant situations from the past and dig into them. And such reflections are better stopped. What was, is past. We need to try to live in the present moment and build our future, not devote a lot of time to digging into some story from the past. Aquarius, in your horoscope, the black moon will be transiting through the 11th astro field. This is the house of our social realization. Therefore, here, during this transit, it is important to monitor the informational frequency of your space. The 11th house symbolizes the internet and our interaction with other people primarily through the internet. Therefore, it is important here to monitor what information you publish about yourself, because something from this may be perceived not quite adequately by your friends or people who are subscribed to you. This is also a time that can provoke some emotionally responsive plots in your interaction with groups of people. This is a time when we can envy someone else's success. Or it may seem to us that someone's results come significantly easier than to us, that much more effort, much more work is required from us, that we go through the same paths as other people, but with more obstacles. The time of this transit can provoke in us jealousy regarding someone else's success or regarding the fact that other people allow themselves to do what they want, but you restrain yourself. That someone knows how to violate some generally accepted rules and norms, but you have to adhere to a certain order, that you forbid yourself something and limit yourself in something. The 11th house is also the house of lovers and mistresses. Therefore, if this topic is relevant for you, then here there may be some very responsive, emotionally responsive plots for you. For example, someone may find out about your romance, secret affair. Conversations may start about it. That is, there may be such situations. Also, in this case, from the plus side, this is a time when you can create what did not exist. This is a very good time to launch some new products, advertising, to start your own business, especially if this business is realized through the internet. This is a good time to create your page on social networks, your online store, or YouTube channel. But again, here you need to be prepared for the fact that you may encounter criticism, envy from other people, or condemnation. Throughout this transit, it is important to protect your personal information, especially that which is information in digital format. During this transit, we can get into such situations or into such companies of people, such groups, where we do not feel completely free, where we feel some stiffness, that we are being watched, that we are being evaluated. And these evaluating looks can create some mishap situations. You need to be prepared for this too. And of course, the 11th house symbolizes our purchases that we make through the internet. And here attentiveness is needed. We may either buy something that we absolutely do not need, or there will be too great a discrepancy between expectations and reality. Also, at this time, some misunderstandings may arise in your interaction with brothers, sisters, or nephews. It is also important to control how much time during the day you spend looking at your phone, you spend on the internet. If, of course, you are studying, if you use this opportunity to your advantage, then that's good. But if it's just scrolling through a news feed, then you need to limit yourself. Also, here you should limit yourself in games, especially online games, when we spend money on such games. Careful control on your part is needed here. You should not devote too much of your free time to this. And of course, at this time, you need to be careful in the process of meeting people through the internet. These are acquaintances of both a personal and business nature. If, for example, you are looking for a company that provides some services that interest you, then study reviews. Do not agree to the first offer that is made to you. Pisces, in your horoscope, the black moon will occupy the position of the zenith of your horoscope. It will be transiting through your 10th astro field. This is the sector of status, career, reputation, and authority. And the black moon here forms a very strong desire, such an obsessive, fanatical desire to achieve its goal, no matter what. For example, when a person has been working in some organization for a long time, dreams of occupying the highest position, the position of department head or head of some organization, and he fanatically wants this, not understanding that this is actually not what he needs, that he has generally already lost interest in this work, in this direction, that it will be not very convenient for him to work in this position, that it will take up all his free time, that he will have to spend his weekends on this work, that he will then miss something in his personal life, in his hobbies, that it will be a very heavy burden of responsibility, but he desires it fanatically. And as a rule, in the process of such a transit, a person really gets what he wants and very quickly becomes disappointed in it. And, as a rule, after obtaining such a position, after obtaining the result, the person generally changes the direction of his work. This, of course, is an example. And this can manifest in different spheres of life. For example, in personal life, when for a person, for a girl, for example, it becomes a goal to start a family, to get married. And she sees that the partner she has chosen has flaws, very serious disagreements between them, that they are different at the level of their beliefs, and that agreeing on this can be very difficult. That is, she sees that there may be problems. She sees that this person is not quite suitable for living together, for a family, for raising children together. She sees and understands this. But the goal of getting married, achieving her goal, is above everything during such a stage. And then, as a rule, if a person still achieves his goal, he understands how mistaken he was, that he does not need this. Or a person strives for some achievement simply in order to show it to other people, to demonstrate it. It is like a vanity fair. A person does not actually desire what he is striving for, but he wants to get it simply to demonstrate to other people his success or some specific items as attributes of a successful life. That is, at this time, you need to control what is called the vanity fair, when we try to outwardly show an image that we actually do not have inside and which we actually do not need. Therefore, again, here you need to be attentive to your goals, to your aspirations, so that our goal, which is not our internal need of the soul, does not substitute reality for us. But again, since the black moon is an empty focus that we can fill with anything, this is a wonderful time to achieve, to create what you really need, what will become the subject of your pride. The black moon will help you in this. Therefore, if we carefully analyze our goals, what we want, and how much this resonates in our inner world, how much we need it, if this external goal coincides with our internal need, then we will be able to create a masterpiece in our life. Among the minuses, during such a transit, there may be a person in your environment who will try to suppress you, who will try, so to speak, to spoil your reputation and your authority. This may be a boss who underestimates you. This may be some relative who constantly criticizes you. This may be your friend who tries to devalue your goals and your achievements, your significance. This can happen, and this should be carefully observed. If such people show activity during this transit, it means that you are still trying to appear better, more significant than you need yourself. Also, the 10th house symbolizes controlling authorities, state instances. And during such a transit, there may be some misunderstandings related, for example, to an inspection of your business, or to the fact that it may turn out that you do not have a certain document that you need. There may be such nuances. At the same time, this does not mean that you may be doing something wrong, something incorrect, overlooking something. It's just that it may seem that there is a much stricter control over you, whatever it concerns.